Welcome to the second episode of the European Dialogue for Sustainable Cities. I am Saara Vauramo.
And my name is Jussi Knuuttila.
And we'll be your host today. In this dialogue series, we want to highlight solutions that other cities can use in their development. Every episode also features one of the previous European Green Capital winners. And today's theme is eco-innovation. And our guest city today is Stockholm, the very first ever European Green Capital.
And welcome on my behalf as well. You can participate in the discussion by asking a question in the chat on YouTube. And in our previous episode, we already received very good participation from your behalf. And we like to keep it that way in our episode as well. So let's first try if the chat function even works. So we would like to ask a question to our viewers. Where are you joining us from today? Write down your answer in the chat.
Wow, interesting to hear where people are actually coming from.
Yep.
Today, we are happy to have 4 guests in the discussion. First, I would like to introduce you to Mrs. Katarina Luhr from the city of Stockholm. Hi, Katarina.
Hello.
Katarina.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Katarina is the Vice Mayor for Environment and Climate in the city of Stockholm. She has a background as a pharmacist and also she holds a PhD in neuroscience. In 2010, Katarina entered the Stockholm City Council representing the Green Party. She's today joining us from across the Baltic Sea. Welcome.
Thank you.
And our next guest is Sena Segbedzi. And Sena works as the coordinator of the OECD's Champion Mayors Initiative for Inclusive Growth. Sena manages the activities and the strategic direction and works in projects related to equitable development, climate finance and investment, local governance, but also innovation capacity in cities. Previously, Sena has served as a program manager for Ford Foundation's Initiative for the Equitable and Inclusive Recovery of Detroit. So very interesting. Joining us from Paris, welcome, Sena.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you. And our third guest is Timo Mäkelä. Timo has worked on environmental finance and sustainable development issues in the last 40 years. He has been employed by the governments of Finland and also Botswana, as well as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Commission. Now Timo works in the Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, as the senior advisor in sustainability solutions. Welcome to the show, Timo. I presume from Helsinki, right?
Yes, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Great to have you with us. Our final guest is Simo Säynevirta. Simo is the leading industrial digitalization efforts at ABB, and he also works as the head of the ecosystem activities in ABB's Green Electrification 2035 program. Simo has experience from various global engineering and business roles in ABB's process automation business area. I think today you're joining from Heinola in Finland.
No, I'm here at the Central Park in New York. No, just kidding, yes. So it looks a little bit different outside the window, but I'm not too far away from Lahti.
Great that you could join.
Seems to be it's very nice weather there in New York.
So, have we got any comments from our audience?
Yes.
Where they are joining?
So we have people from Lahti, 3 people already from Lahti, from Vitoria-Gasteiz, from Romania, from Kittilä is in Finnish Lapland, and in Faro, Portugal.
Oh, great.
Tudo bem, Portugal.
All right. The eco-innovation term is a bit difficult, I think. So let's start with the definition of the eco-innovation. we'll have a short round with all the speakers. How would you actually describe the eco-innovation as a term? And let's start with Katarina. How would you do it?
I believe that an eco-innovation is something that will increase the speed of resolving our environmental challenges or just help us to reach the goals that we really need to do. And there's a lot of challenges at the time.
I very much agree. What about you, Timo?
So for me, actually, eco-innovation is a rather wide kind of the definition. It is really about facing our big global challenges of climate change, loss of biodiversity, scarcity of the resources and pollution, by creating new business opportunities, new type of employment, a different type of a growth. So it is actually a solution-orientated positive agenda instead of seeing it seeing these issues as a problem and constraints. So that's why that is a concept which is for all. It's not only for certain type of businesses or municipalities, it is an agenda for all.
I like that very much too. What about Sena?
So we've been working on innovation for a while, and I'd have to say for eco-innovation, I feel like it's something that helps change our behavior in a way that reduces the wear and tear on our climate and environment and helps us toward our sustainability goals. So something that changes our impacts.
Mm-hmm. Good definition too. Simo, what would you describe?
Yeah, actually, it's actually very interesting that if you had asked me like 5 years ago this, I would have to kind of look it up in Wikipedia or Google it up, because it was not kind of on, for instance, our radar that much. But if you today look at kind of what is eco-innovation, and for instance, a large industrial innovator like ABB, most everything we do actually is eco-innovation. So we are developing technologies, we are developing new solutions with which we can, particularly in our case, we can help the fight the climate change topics by reducing the CO2 emissions, for instance. And then if you look at kind of what is just the latest development is that this becomes a very, very much kind of a mainstream activity. So a lot of the money is now and capital is actually being prioritized to these areas, which means that it's no more kind of a sideline kind of a elitist topic. It is actually everything, and I would say that this is a very interesting time to be here, because now it's actually the hot area to be. Mm-hmm. From a business point of view.
So it might be so that it's more relevant now than ever, actually. Mm. So what about our audience? Do you agree or disagree with the definitions here? You may also comment that on the chat box.
Yes, please write down your comment in the chat. So, Saara, what did you know about eco-innovations before the excellent definitions by our panelists?
I guess one of the difficulties is that the term itself isn't that well known, at least in Finnish. That's not much used. What came to my mind, like immediately when thinking about this, was one project called Litter of Light that was invented in Brazil, I think, but now it's like a global project, and it's a sort of a low-cost innovation done with only plastic bottles and water, but also a little bit of bleach, and you can have also lights in circumstances where there is no electricity. So not all the innovations have to be very, very technical, but they can be smart in some other ways too.
Oh, sounds really brilliant and also very practical. And going forward, Katarina, you are the Vice Mayor for Environment and Climate in the city of Stockholm, but you also have an important role in the European-wide politics as a member of the board of the Covenant of Mayors. So how would you reflect on the Green Capital Award that Stockholm won in 2010. You were, after all, the first city to win the title.
Yes, and it was 10 years ago. So I went back to see what did we get the prize from in Stockholm. And we actually got it from, first of all, to have an integrated process for environment in all our budget processes and steering documents. This has improved so much the last 10 years, and I will talk a little bit about that later. But we also had cut our emissions, our carbon dioxide emissions, by 25% at that time since 1990. Now we're down to 60% per capita 10 years later. And also we had put a goal to be fossil fuel free in 2050. Now we have a goal of being fossil fuel free and climate positive in 2040. So a lot of things have changed, but this was actually a good start for Stockholm to speed up the processes. Since we got a lot of interest from the Stockholm members, all the citizens got their eyes opened about all the environment issues. And I think actually in Stockholm, we had like a self-image that we were green, that we were interested in nature, in water and the environment. But I think this prize actually showed us that other people could see that. And I think that made everyone want to contribute to this process and all the environmental work, which also actually helped when we were inviting companies later to help us with the environmental work. So I think the prize and the award, it gave the Stockholmers a feeling of pride and inspired everyone to do more. During that year, we invented a study program for visitors to show the different things we had been doing in Stockholm. And that was also a good start to do more, because of course we wanted to show people everything good that we were doing. So that also improved Stockholm as a test bed of innovations, that we were building one environmental friendly city, part of the city, and now we started to develop more to be able to show our visitors what we could do. Okay. So I think that was also very important for us. Okay. The last thing I would like to just mention was that since then we have made our environmental program that then was integrated in our steering process into different action programs that also helped us a lot when we were trying to find new eco-innovations, that we have lists of what will we do with water, what will we do with the climate, what do we have to do about microplastics and chemicals. So now we have like catalogs of challenges that we want to have resolved by companies and citizens and everyone. So I think it meant a lot.
Sounds very good, and it sounds like there's continuity from 2010. So you have kept on going with the projects and so on. Can you just quickly name eco-innovation that is still there in Stockholm, or something that was kickstarted during 2010?
I think in 2010, we actually just expanded most of our processes. So when we were building, we had in our first city development project, we had put quite hard energy standards in the buildings. So then we started to measure that in a better way to see if we could push the building processes to emit less CO2. We put on much more solar cells. We started to climate adapt the city to take care of the water, and also to clean the water in a better way. And that is things that improves all the time. We also have started working with ecological compensation. When we build on green land, we will compensate that land somewhere else. And also this green area factor, that if you want to build, even if it's a concrete area, you really need to show that you will also plan for biological diversity and the green structure. And that has been developing all the time, but it started back in 2010.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you, Katarina. I really like those concrete examples. Thank you.
Me too, a lot. That was really interesting to hear the Stockholm's journey as a green capital. And do we actually have also audience from Stockholm? We would like to now ask which eco-innovations you are most proud of. Just if you happen to be there. feel free to chat that. Timo, you have a really exciting career with water protection projects in Botswana and, for example, as an environmental advisory work together with Chinese government, also for a long time with the European Commission. Have eco-innovations always played a role in your working career throughout all these years?
Well, I would say that eco-innovation has been all the time part of my career. Starting from Botswana, I had to kind of design a water pollution control system for the country because they didn't exist at that time anymore. And of course, scarcity is an issue there. And of course, it had to be done in an innovative way. In the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, I had to restructure the water services in the former socialist countries. Again, a lot of innovative work and then paying a lot of attention on the financing, but also on the efficiency of the services. In the European Commission, among other things, I did a lot there as well, but I was designing the funding programs for eco-innovative small and medium-sized enterprises, size-wise, and I was running and planning and running those programs size-wise, maybe 500 million euro annually. A lot of money, but in Europe, not so much. Wonderful examples of companies who are eco-innovative companies, which are still up and running. At the moment, of course, Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, is about innovation. It is basically, I'm working on issues related to the carbon neutral and circular economy in Finland and beyond. And of course, there we are particularly paying attention to businesses and scanning, if you like, the businesses, not only in Finland, but across the globe, which are the most promising businesses. In fact, we have I played a role in creating a circular economy innovation center in Tatarstan, in Russian Federation, in Kazan. So this is a topic that attracts also attention east of Finland. And at the moment, of course, as I told you already, I'm also a member of the board of several small and medium-sized enterprises working on eco-innovation. So my whole career has been about eco-innovation, as I did.
It truly seems to be. So you have been following maybe the journey of different companies, but also cities. Do you see that those companies who have been putting efforts to the eco-innovations, have they actually made a better, like also having better possibilities for future, or how is it? Is it playing a major role?
I think, talking about the cities, and of course not only in Finland, but looking at across the Europe, what really seems to be something which gets businesses flying in the cities is the clusters of business and companies that kind of support each other. Just a couple of examples. For instance, in the Kemi-Tornio region in Finland, so there is a cluster of businesses which are in the steel, mining, and metallurgical industry. And of course, it is about the industrial symbiosis, meaning that somebody's waste is somebody's raw material, because they support each other. In the city of Vaasa, there's an energy cluster. And of course, there are a lot of businesses and spin-offs that basically are running and successful. In the city of Joensuu, there's a wood industry cluster. Again, innovation, eco-innovation plays their role. Usually there's a university around that. Lahti is also an example of a cluster of clean tech businesses. You know it better than I do. And of course, that certainly has played some role to a point and make Lahti green capital of Europe. So clusters, universities, and businesses which then support each other and then spin-offs from those activities.
Also the crane cluster here in Lahti region, that's exactly pretty important too. Have we got any comments from the audience about eco-innovation as a concept?
Yes, I was just checking the chat and we do have some definitions, but also already some questions, which is very good. We have a comment here. The definitions were good, but more interesting would be the concrete examples. And then I have the term eco-innovation is new for me, but obviously it is not that difficult to imagine the meaning. And then I have the third one, which is eco-innovation is a paradigm shift.
All right, so I would still like to ask from Timo about the role of cities. How do you see them? How cities are carrying eco-innovations? Have the role of cities now increased or decreased during the years? How do you see it?
Well, everything happens in cities, and of course cities play are central in promoting solutions which use the eco-innovation. Well, Sitra has been working with the city of Jyväskylä towards more resource-efficient city of Jyväskylä in Finland. So, of course, policies are there to kind of put things moving, but everything happens in cities, of course, not only in cities, but so cities and the policies in the cities, actions in the cities, concrete actions, they play a crucial role in addressing the problems that we are facing.
Thank you so much, Timo.
And now we have been talking about eco-innovations. They are not just defined by innovations to processes or products, but they also cover organizations and also social aspects. And Sena, your role in OECD is to think about the inclusive growth in cities. Do you agree with the findings of Timo, but also this point, everything happens in the cities? I think you must agree with this, or Sena?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. Timo made some great points. And as for everything happening in the cities, if you look at it from the emission standpoint, cities are responsible for 80% of greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at it from the consumption standpoint, 2/3 of energy consumption happen in cities. So it is happening in cities. And certainly there has been a tremendous change in approaches where where Stockholm was ambitious in setting these very concrete timelines. Now other cities are also starting to think of 2030, 2050 as goals for carbon neutrality and zero emissions. Certainly, we've seen that. We've seen changes with our city's leadership and mayors, in particular, that we work with. In 2017, it was a topic of choice for our champion mayors, how to bridge their climate change strategies with their inclusive growth strategies. So how to look at it from the social and economic standpoints. So it's not just a science now, there's a comprehensive, holistic, intersectional approach to the environment, which I think is this eco-innovation. It's seeing the connections, how the different direct divisions work in cities, how the public works can work with the economic development on the same topics. So certainly see these changes happening.
And you just mentioned leadership, and I think that is a very interesting topic as well. What kind of skills, what kind of leadership skills are needed nowadays in order to design and implement eco-innovations in cities?
Well, we're seeing that for mayors, when we ask cities, what is the largest influential thing that's happening that supports your innovation, and what is the most important? It's leadership. It's having leadership from the mayor. And we say that this sets a trend for how it is diffused throughout the whole organization, how important it is. And so really how mayors set up the teams around them, how they bring the different leadership together to talk about certain issues has been, a lot of the innovation is happening internally internally, how the cities operate internally, and how they bring people into the room together to talk about a certain topic. And we're seeing this take place in cities, and mayors be really the cornerstone of this movement.
Sena, you have really an important role in the city network of OECD. So still a little bit more about the leadership itself. Could you describe somehow the personal qualities that would be needed nowadays in cities to really push sort of a positive approach to climate change? Because easily we get just like sort of nightmare images about future, but how to actually create a positive approach.
Yeah, so I think it starts with people feeling that there's action going toward their goals. So what we've seen, we highlight 5 components to innovation in the public sector that's helping set forth impact. And one, of course, is how it is structured within the organization, where it sits. So some innovation offices sit right under the mayor's purview or sit within the city manager, and that's helping in this diffusing, finding the intersections, integrating it throughout the organization, like the vice mayor said. So that's been helping. Others are putting funding and resources toward it, and not just money, but finding partnerships that help move this forward. Another is having data and having leaders make decisions based on data and evidence, and really enhancing the capability and the data governance within the city. And what we find that is really important, but I guess there's room for opportunity for improvement, is this question of evaluation and monitoring the innovation goals or the innovation strategy. And only 16% of cities were doing it in a comprehensive and systematic way. And, being able to say if you're on track or you have to pivot or failing is also important to the innovation process to take those lessons and readjust where necessary.
Thank you. Sena, just with a couple of sentences, what would you see, what is the state of innovation capacity in the EU at the moment? You coordinated the 2009 report by OECD and Bloomberg Philanthropies about the innovation capacity both in EU but also in North America.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the largest respondents to the survey, like you said, were in the North America and the EU, and we started to see some regional differences between the cities. And the largest being, when asked whether cities were taking a holistic approach or a policy sector approach, more cities in the EU, about 50%, said they were taking more of a policy sector approach. And then globally in our survey. And of the policy sectors that were the top performing or the top subscribed was social inclusion, digital governance, and the third, of course, climate and environment. So globally, it was quite different. It was about transport, it was about economic development, and we started to see different the differences in the EU, first off, and then the staff within the innovation offices also looked different. In the EU, we had more of data scientists, but also sociologists that made up innovation staff within the city. So it was interesting to see the differences in the regions, but certainly climate was a big factor for EU cities.
Yes, all those topics are very topical at the moment. Thank you, Sena. And Sarah, I'm going to leave you alone just for a few minutes. I will check on our chat, so please ask questions from our panelists. I'll be back soon.
Yeah. So now we've talked quite a lot about cities, but also companies have, of course, a really, really important role. And Simo, you work as the digital lead in ABB Finland, but also coordinating the ABB's Green Electrification 2035 program. Would you like to briefly explain what does it actually mean?
Yes, thank you. So I start by just defining what those words mean. So what is now green electrification and why 2035? You might guess why 2035. So Finland actually has set the target to be on a nation level carbon neutral by 2035. And then how you can do that, you have to get rid of using fossil fuels. So it's simple like that. So we have to stop using fossil-based raw materials and fuels, and then what is going to replace it? So we have today kind of a lot of our energy still generated by consuming fossil fuels. We have to replace it with non-fossil, carbon-free energy, and that happens to be green electricity. So we can generate now very affordably, and this is now a great development. In the last few years, we can generate electricity from renewable sources. So here in Finland, of course, we do have solar. Actually, surprisingly, it is relevant here as well. But particularly wind power is something which is abundant. We have a lot of land here. We have possibility to build these wind power turbines here, and then it's part of this eco innovation that actually this market, this has now developed as a market, and the affordability of that technology and efficiency of that technology has been greatly improved. So we essentially have now means to do this, but in order to do this on a system level, you have to actually cover all the bases. So you have to start from replacing the fossil coal-based or fossil fuel-based energy at the source, and then you have to be able to distribute it. So you have to have resilient energy networks, and then when you consume it, you have to do it also in an efficient fashion. And essentially, it is about how you generate and use this electricity in a most efficient way. And in our program, what we are doing, ABB being the world leading innovator of these base technologies, we basically build a platform with which we can, together with partners, make this change happen. And then somebody called for a concrete example. So if what is it actually then in the end? So it is simple things. So if you think about in the cities or in the industry, of today's electricity, 45% is consumed by electric motors. So there are pumps and fans and what have you that are then rotating, and that electricity is then making those things work. And then today, if we used our eco-design regulation-based best technology we today have available, you could actually, by just using that technology, you could save 10% of today's electricity used in the world. So we just have to adopt these technologies at wide scale. And there, if I then kind of still link to the role of the cities or forerunner cities, I think it is very important that we do this concretely in places where people live and work. Mm-hmm. And there, why we are working with Lahti actually, so if Finland was 2035 carbon neutral, Lahti has set the target to be carbon neutral in all of its operations already by 2025. And then, okay, it's actually a great place to do this development together with citizens and businesses in that region. Mm-hmm.
So if looking at the carbon neutral cities in a near future, what do you see? How does a city or the whole society look like after implementing all the best technologies for green electrification? Would it look like Central Park in the picture?
Yeah, I guess it would look a little bit like that. So we would have less kind of emissions coming out of, for instance, burning something. So that would be kind of if you think about again the simple example, what is the most efficient way of heating houses? It is not by burning gas or burning some even materials. It is actually by using electricity in heat pumps, because you out of 1 kilowatt hour of electricity, you can generate 3 to 4 kilowatt hours worth of heat if you use a heat pump. And if you have a best kind of a combustion process, then okay, perhaps you get 80% of that energy to heat your house. But
so basically
it doesn't look much different, but it is actually much better.
So what you are also saying is that at some point we will get rid of burning materials, because that's not going to be sustainable for a really long time anymore, right?
Though of course we have to see that in which processes this is possible. So if you think about, for instance, ocean-going vessels, and marine, Finland is an island essentially, so we have to kind of have a lot of, and world trade is basically going with for instance, cargo vessels. And in that context, we are already working on, for instance, hydrogen-based fuel cell-powered electric ships. So that is today's available technology, but it's not the most efficient way to make a kind of a cargo ship go across the ocean. So there you need still a combustion engine, but that combustion engine probably is going to use synthetic fuel. So we will capture CO2 out of CO2 sources. For instance, if you have your municipal waste processing, and you have, for instance, biomethane coming out of it, or then you generate out of electricity with electrolysis, you generate hydrogen, and then you marry that with CO2 that you have captured somewhere. You can basically generate bio-based or synthetic fuels that are then essentially CO2 recycling. So they are not emitting any more kind of fossil CO2 out of fossil sources, but they are just circulating the CO2 that we have in the atmosphere.
So thanks a lot, Simo, and we'll really look forward to the cooperation with ABB too during the years. Katarina, Stockholm has also worked for a long time with clean tech companies and projects. What would you say, which would be the key success elements for working with public and private sector?
I think an important thing is to present your challenges, because I think when you speak about innovation, sometimes people get so just energetic about talking about the innovations, so they want innovations no matter what. We need to finance those innovations, and we have a lot of challenges. So I think one important thing is to really present what kind of challenges do we have, what kind of solutions can you help us with. For example, in Stockholm we have a lot of lakes that have too much phosphorus and nitrogen in them, and that is bad for the diversity and the ecological systems in the lakes, of course. And we use a chemical to just bind the phosphor in the lake. We would need some kind of cheap equipment to just fish up the phosphorus and the nitrogen to use it, because phosphorus is something that there's a lack of in everywhere. So I think we really need to present what kind of problems do we have and what do we need, and also to be able to connect and speak to each other. We actually have a new director of innovation since a couple of years in Stockholm that works together with universities here to try to find solutions on the challenges that cities have. So I think that is an important success factor also, to try to speak more about what do we want to do, where do we have to invest money in the future, and can you help us with our challenges?
Yeah, thanks for this. I very much agree with you. Did we got any comments from the audience?
Yes, I do. I have some questions here. And while we are on the topic of challenges, I have a question from the audience. What are the wildest challenges you all face in your work? Now we heard from Katarina, but it would be really exciting to hear about the challenges from the other speakers. So, Timo?
Yes, good question. I think, the big issue that we need to face when we talk, in addition to these global challenges that I mentioned, is really to kind of be able to demonstrate, and it has been done, and be convincing of telling that these solutions are not an add-on cost. They are basically make business sense. They generate revenues. There's a demand in the market, and that's the role of the policymakers really to kind of make this happen. Eco-innovation, be it clean tech or circular economy, energy, it is a big business already. Resource management, eco-design, it's really a big business, and of course that is, to my mind, important and crucial to demonstrate that this all makes also business sense.
Thank you, Timo. What do you think, Sena? What are the wildest challenges you face at work?
Well, when we asked the same question to the cities that responded to this, some were, red tape, silos within the city administration, making it hard to work across. Some were incompatible data that makes it hard to work across. Of course, we have the same issues with our cities trying to bridge them together, cities from Korea to cities from, the US, trying to find a common ground. While there are major trends happening across the globe, there are different nuances in how they are manifesting and the drivers of them in place. So trying to find and make the policies that are global, but also place-based is quite a challenge.
And what about you, Simo?
Well, I think actually this is, I don't know whether it's a wild challenge. I think it's the huge opportunity we have at hand currently, and what makes it slightly challenging for companies, large companies like ours, or then for cities, for anybody, is that actually the rate of change that's occurring right now, it's just tremendous. So if you think about we're talking about Finland carbon free 2035 and Lahti 2025. Lahti is already, you are on a good way already, so you have a little more to do, but you'll do it for sure. But I mean, for the world at large and for large companies, this rate of change is such that it actually calls for a big mental modus change. So if I think about, for instance, energy sector, they used to say that for a utility company, they are in a quarterly business, like all businesses, they are reporting their quarters. But the difference is that in energy business, your quarter is 25 years. And it's not like the few months that you would have in the normal business. And now what we would have to do here is that these things that used to take like tens of years, they are now happening in 5 years. And how do you mentally change your modus that don't wait for tomorrow, but actually make and do that? And to me, that is the greatest challenge, both in companies as well as society at large, and that at the same time makes it actually intriguing, because I really like it. We have a lot of things happening, yes. A lot of opportunity.
Thank you, Simo. Maybe Timo, do you want to quickly reflect on this?
Yes, I think one thing that mental change. I do agree. We have actually studied in Sitra a lot, and I remember past in my career in the European Union, we were studying a lot about the skills shortages of making the change. And it is true. I mean, talking to many businesses like ABB, but also many others, they are telling us, and they have been telling me in the past, that look, we cannot really find the skills that are needed for this change. So this is, the speed of the change is such, but people need to of course be taken along, but also one needs to find a way of providing changing skills for businesses, for societies. And this is a big challenge, I can tell you. It's not a theoretical thing. The businesses who want to enter into these areas, new areas, reap the opportunities that are there. They don't really have the people to do the work.
That's really important. If some of the panelists would like to comment on the skills issue, there's possibility, just raise your hand and we'll let you speak also. It would be interesting to hear maybe others' point of views.
Yeah, perhaps I can continue from what Timo said. So we have identified this skill shortage topic, but we have also worked kind of systemically on this. So on digital skills, this was very evident already like 5 years ago. So how do we upskill kind of our digital workforce and get the new talent in? But then I would say that the last 2 years, this has also advanced more to this, for instance, the eco design side, and how do we get, for instance, people who understand the sustainability topics, and how do we embed them into our design team so that this becomes like a driving factor when we design new technologies, for instance. Mm-hmm. But we've taken a kind of systemic approach to address this.
Mm-hmm. You need to have different approaches, and it's a cross-sectorial work. Katarina?
Yes, I have a similar feeling that we lack competence and skills, and for a long time we had a problem getting specialists for water, clean water waste treatment, and everything like that. Now we can see that there's a need of like people that can put up solar panels, different ecologists in the city that has to work on the biological diversity. So, but I think also that there are educations coming, but there's a lack of competence now. So we are trying to actually find courses in education that are shorter for people that can go into working much earlier than for the universities to make those different educations that are specific for what we need right now. So I think there will be competence coming in.
Great, and a lot about future working possibilities and jobs too. It seems to be very prominent. Innovations, they often emerge when cities and companies are working together, but also citizens have a role. Do you have good approaches how to actually work more closely with citizens? Because we also need to have the end user of the products often with us. Katarina, do you have anything in your mind about this?
No, but this is actually one of our biggest challenges in Stockholm, to be able to involve the citizens. But I think it's also one of the most important aspects on environmental work. And as you I'm sure know, there's a movement with climate demonstrators in Stockholm, and a lot of the young people really wants us to do so much more than we do today. But still, I think there's a lack of both knowledge of what we do and what we have been doing, but also how we really like get together and collaborate instead of just trying to, I don't know, it's really difficult. And we have in Stockholm, we have had this Climate Smart Stockholmers and information project when we try to get more people to go by bike and live more environmental friendly, but it's still very difficult to get everyone on board. Mm-hmm. And you get like a special, but then to find everyone, and a lot of people doesn't know that those exist.
You know, maybe that's also one thing what we could actually do together with the European Green Capital Network to really share this kind of citizen-driven innovation projects that could be very, very interesting indeed. So let's get back to that. But Simo has something in his mind.
Yeah, so I was just I wanted to kind of raise an example. I haven't heard, like of course, living in city myself and so on. I haven't heard this, and I think this is kind of a problem. But what I really liked about was the idea that Lahti had brought forward, which was the kind of the emissions trading scheme for the citizens. So kind of that you could basically with your own actions you could improve reduce your own carbon footprint, and then you get credits on the city emission trading scheme. That to me it's I don't know how well it works, but it's actually a brilliant idea of such a thing. So kind of make people aware that your own choices, they have an impact, and then if you do good, then okay, the system actually creates a marketplace for you to benefit.
Oh, thanks. We'll still think that the idea is brilliant. Of course, with this kind of project, you have a lot of technical issues to face. But otherwise, I think it was a successful pilot anyway, and we're going to actually launch the results very soon in the City Cup.
Weeks.
In the seminar of City Cup.
Yes. And
actually comment on
yes.
that. Sitra Finnish Innovation Fund is doing a lot, developing a lot of instruments to work with the citizens, such as there's a scheme under which each and every one can kind of calculate our carbon footprint. It is going to be spread now across Europe through European Commission and so forth. Also, studies clearly show across Europe, and I would think also globally, that people really want to do something if they know how, and if it's simple, and if they basically know that it's beneficial. So, I mean, there's a lot of information that, simple information that can be conveyed. The big debate is something which is centered around this topic, is whether or not it's going to be useful and successful to blame the consumers. My experience show that no, it doesn't work. The consumers, in a sense, and kind of count only on the choices of the consumers and people. Policymakers really need to establish frameworks, to my mind, be it cities or countries, under which consumers can trust that the products that they buy are good, and the services that they basically get are good, and also that the infrastructure is something that makes them easy to be more sustainable. But this is a central theme and a very important theme.
Thank you, Timo. A really strong message to, of course, we can't blame the people, but we need to have positive approaches. Would you like to, Sena, still add something?
Well, on the topic of co-creation, we're seeing that a lot of cities are using applications or e-governance systems to be able to data source and crowdsource from citizens. So we know a city in Louisville, Kentucky is having citizens who have asthma or respiratory related issues give daily updates about how they're feeling so that they can connect it to air pollution and then make changes around the circulation in the city. So if residents start to see these small changes that I'm giving data, it's changing the way in my daily life of how I'm living and working and I'm experiencing the city. This starts to build the trust and then gets into deeper visioning and working with a local government we've seen. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so encouraging, and that's always inspiring to hear these concrete actions that other cities are doing with the citizens. So we'll go to the last round session. It's about myths and claims that one might consider when thinking about sustainability or eco-innovations. You may agree or disagree. Just give us one sentence reasoning why. I would like to present the first myth to Katarina. Are you ready? Sustainability means lowering our standards of living.
Disagree. I'm sure that sustainability is the only way to improve life quality both in cities and all over the planet.
Thank you. And then, Sena, what do you think about this following statement? New technologies will eventually solve the climate crisis.
While new technologies may be a part of the solution, it also will take how we change our economic behavior and development, how we change our societal behavior, and impact on how we deal with environmental and climate changes. So it'll take a little bit more than technology to change things.
Thanks.
Simo, the next myth is public sector is responsible for governing and regulation, and thus it's unable to drive innovations.
I actually would agree and disagree. So, of course, public sector needs to come up with a regulation and regulation to create markets, particularly in this area, are needed. But also wise regulation can drive the innovation. And so the policies play a important role, like as we heard in Stockholm, basically looking at the challenges that need to be faced. And of course, that needs to be then, the innovations and the businesses are there to implement.
Thank you, Timo. And then, Simo, what do you think about the statement, things were better before?
No. I'm an optimist, and I'm actually very much looking forward to that we have exciting times ahead, and this world will become much better place for all of us. So definitely not.
Thank you. That was a good answer. Yes, that was our last statement and myth. And we are also in the end of the second episode of European Dialogue for Sustainable Cities. It went really fast. Also, this time around we had a bit of a different topic. Last time we had sustainable urban mobility. So what did you think? Saara, do you know what's an eco-innovation?
Yeah, when we talk about this with colleagues of ours, they were a little bit hesitating what eco-innovation means, and I have to say that it's not really that well-known term for me. But what I really loved in this series was the concrete actions that you could actually present, and also the ways how you are working there, Katarina, in Stockholm, really determining the challenges that city could actually start finding new solutions. That's a systematic way to do it. I love it, really. We have to do it here in Lahti too.
Same. And I must agree, I had to Google eco-innovations before writing the script of the episode. And what really came to my mind, now summarizing, is the concrete examples of Katarina, Sena, Simo, and Timo. And thank you to all of our panelists. And
Thank you.
This was the episode. And in 1 month, so we will be doing this dialogue series every first Wednesday of the month. And our next episode is about biodiversity, so a very hot topic. And that airs on the 7th of April.
We're also going to host the city of Bristol. That was the European Green Capital 2015, I think.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to hear what Bristol thinks about biodiversity after Brexit. Thank you very, very much, our great panelists and also people joining the discussion there in the YouTube. We would like to present you one kind of eco-innovation from the city of Lahti during this winter. Stay tuned. This is the European Dialogue for Sustainable Cities.
To be the European Green Capital this year, and we want to celebrate it in a very Lahti way. Winter sports and skiing are a big part of who we are, and we want to save our winters. That's why we are only 4 years away from reaching carbon neutrality in 2025.